Gurtej, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the show. This is episode number 4 for Straight Talk with the Lemersville Unified School District. My name is Amrit Chima. Let me give you a little bit of myself. Our focus on these shows is to get the candidates, talk to our community, talk to our voters for this election, given the pandemic. This is unfortunately or fortunately, both ways, only platform where we have to get to see each other with social distancing and everything. So again, myself, my name is Amrit Chima. I've been a Mountain House resident since 2004 with my family, with 3 kids. All of them from kindergarten to high school went through Mountain House schools with Wickland and then on to Mountain House High School, of course. And one of them is joining us today, luckily as well, and her team in the background with students. A little bit of my background, a big passion for education, of course. I have a double master's, one in plant molecular biology, one in biotech, and then went on to did my second master's in design and development from Michigan State University, continued on with my PhD. Combining the two fields, apparently not related, but combine them in terms of developing biopolymers for packaging use from plants. And then went to as a consultant in the field, working for various corporations and companies, and been a consultant ever since in research and development, mostly R&D focused and consumer packaged goods. With that background, I'd like to pass on to Parminder. Parminder, would you please introduce yourself to the audience as well?
Yeah, thanks, Amrit. So, hi guys, this is Parminder. So, I have a background in engineering. I've been working at Apple for the last 6 years now, and I've been living at Mountain House for the last 3 years, and my kids go to the Bethany School here. So, it will be a great opportunity to talk to the candidate to talk about the work that she have done in the past and what will be her future plans.
Thank you, Parminder. We also have today, for the first time on this show at least, but a seasoned professional as well too, Ravinder Narwan, who's also from Mountain House, good friend, done a lot of community work as well too, and also has small business entrepreneurship as well too. Why don't you please introduce yourself with your background, education, family, and how long you've been in Mountain House as well too, please.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Amrit. So again, this is Arvinder here. I've been in Mountain House for about last 5 years now. I've got 2 boys. They both go to school, kindergarten and grade 2 here in Bethany. So I did my master's in accounting and finance and been working with big banks, Wells Fargo being one. Right now, I'm a data governance analyst in Bank of the West. I'm very happy to be on part of this forum. I think it's really important. I really appreciate Amrit and team to be hosting these sessions. I found them very useful, and thanks for having me here, Amrit.
Appreciate that, Arvinder. That's great to have you with a different input from a finance budget. A lot of questions on that. Hopefully, we'll be able to poke a little bit on that as well too today. We also have a student body representing, like we said before. This is not about us. This is about our youth, our students in the community. We want them to be involved in governance processes in Mountain House. And with that goal in mind, we always focus on our kids. And we have a student body representative today who will have a background of students who will be asking questions of Anne as well too. Assis Chima, would you please introduce yourself to the audience as well?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Assis Chima. I'm currently a senior at Mountain House High School. I've been a part of the Mountain House community my whole life. I attended kindergarten through 8th grade at Wickland Elementary, and then 9th through 12th at Mountain House High School.
Thank you, Assis. Do you have other students you want to introduce right now as well too? I know you have questions. You have a team in the background who will come on as they will, but if you just briefly about them and what your contribution on the show today would be.
Yes, there's 3 other students that will be asking questions today. One is Harjap Sandhu. She graduated from Mountain House High School as well. She's been a part of Mountain House community for a long time. She's going to UC Berkeley now. Another student we have is Sidlik Chima. She also graduated from Mountain House High School and is now going to UC Davis. And then the third student is Dhruv Dillon. He is a freshman at Mountain House High School.
Wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate that. So we're going to bring in our candidate for the day today, Anne Bonilla. Will be joining us right now in a moment. And hopefully we'll get to know her a little bit better for the audience. Welcome, Anne, to the show, Straight Talk. This is the episode number 4 for Mountain House itself, even though the platform has done a lot other in different districts as well, too. But this is about Mountain House, and we have a Mountain House team and panelists today as well, too. Welcome to the show. I'd like to have you introduce yourself, please, to the audience and community at large, please.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on today, Amrit, and all of you. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to everyone and let them know what I'm all about. So my name is Anne Bonilla. A lot of people in Mountain House know me as Anne Goodrich because I've lived here since 2004. I only recently got married 2 years ago. So most people here in town probably still know me as Anne Goodrich. I have worked, I'm currently a teacher. Well, I'm an administrator now at Modesto City Schools. But I have spent 21 years in education. I've held positions from being a paraprofessional to a special education teacher for grades ranging from 4 through 12 to being a high school teacher and working in as an assistant principal and also as a program specialist. So I've had a variety of different jobs in education. I spent 7 years at Bethany Elementary when it first opened. I have 3 children. 2 of them graduated from Mountain House High School, 1 graduated from Kimball, but they all went through the Mountain House schools. My oldest daughter is now a nurse. She graduated from Arizona State last year. And my 2 other children, one's attending UC Davis to study in applied physics, and the other is studying at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in New York, and she's studying business and product design.
Wonderful.
So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. Appreciate it a ton. We're so glad that all of us, especially elected officials, who had all of them we talked to, have such a diverse background, especially yours in education itself. And hence, we feel very comfortable. The community feels very comfortable of having a representation who understands the system well, who's been through and read through the system as well, and that's appreciated a ton. I'd like to start off. We have about 40 minutes. I would say we'll have a hard stop. There's no hard and fast rules. We can get on a little longer, but roughly would say 45 minutes or so. We'll stop at 8 if we can. But if you think there's more left on that you would like to talk to, we can continue on. So there's no hard and fast rule on this one. So that's roughly the kind of the timeline we're kind of shooting for. With that, let's get into the candidate and part of it as well too. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about why you're running and what your 1 or 2 bullet points first, and then get into each of the bullet points as to what your bid is for this re-election as well too, and what have you done so far?
Okay, so I am currently on the board for Lambertsville Unified School District. I've been there for 4 years. Right now, I'm part of the policy committee. So I look at all of the new laws coming through and also any policies that the school district may need to be amending or changing. And I analyze, make sure that we are doing what's best for students and teachers and staff. I'm also part of the DLAC committee, which is the English Language Acquisition Committee. And that's a really important committee and something that's dear to my heart. I know that a lot of students who are English language learners or who are dubbed English language learners really struggle because they speak both languages very well, but sometimes they don't necessarily read both languages very well. I've worked with a lot of students over the years who are English language learners, and I want to make sure that they don't fall by the wayside. I'm also part of the Wellness Committee, which is another really important piece of what I believe is really important for the schools. I've worked with a lot of students who bring a lot of family difficulties to the classroom. They maybe have their own struggles with mental health, and a lot of time that results in behavior that's misunderstood by teachers or staff. And so making sure that we have the right mental health supports in place for students and the right health supports now in this time of COVID, especially making sure all of that's in place is very, very important to me. So being on the board for 4 years, I've been very involved in all of these committees. And also there used to be an education and grant writing committee. Those were two other committees that I was very involved with. And we had some really nice grants come out of that really benefited Lammersville Elementary School, which was the school that needed the most work at that time. The grant writing committee has kind of gone silent, but I can see that this might be a time when we need to really revive it and get some new funding coming in with some of the new problems that are coming up financially due to the hold harmless statute that the governor passed. So what I'm really about is making sure that our schools, which are extremely good. I mean, we have Mountain House High School recognized in the top 10 by U.S. News and World Report, and our scores are by far the best in this county. And I want to see them be just as good as Alameda County. So, you know, there's something to shoot for still. Good is not good enough. You know, you can always improve. But so I think what I really stand for is just making sure that the teachers are adequately compensated and that their interests are looked out for, because happy teachers lead to happy students. But also I want to make sure that our students have every opportunity to be prepared for the future. There's a lot out there for them to take advantage of, and there are a lot of programs that we can put in place to really help them grow and succeed.
Wonderful, thank you. I'd like to kind of pick one thing I heard about school performances. A lot of the audience, especially younger ones, because usually they're not interested in knowing all that stuff, but I think this is a good platform to educate ourselves about the performance, how school is measured, where do we rank, and what is the criteria, and what is the goal that we need to accomplish that's achievable. What have we done in terms of where the ranking of the schools is in terms of, you know, and Mount House relative to the rest of the unified school districts?
Sure. So in the county of San Joaquin, we have consistently led the pack for our scores. And these scores I'm talking about are the CASP test scores. They're a statewide test for English language arts and math and science now. They've implemented, as well as physical fitness. And so consistently for the past 5 or 6 years, our schools have led the county with the highest scores. And there's often a competition amongst the campuses to see which campus will get the better scores. But nonetheless, they all do extremely well. But what we've noticed is, you know, looking at our county, which is a very rural county, the scores are tremendous. But looking at Alameda County or the Bay Area, we still have some work to do to catch some of the school districts like Pleasanton and Dublin that have a really high bar. So my thought is, you know, we should not be content. We should not be complacent and say, well, we're great, but we are good. But you know what? Good is not good enough. So we need to push our teachers and push our students to continue to excel so that they can achieve those higher scores that we see over the hill. So that's sort of what my thought is, that we need to, and you know, it's difficult because of the coronavirus, there were no tests given in the spring, so we don't have any current data. But there will be, you know, I happen to work in the data portion of Modesto City Schools, so I happen to know that there will be state testing done this spring, even if it's remotely. The state is still planning on doing all of that testing. So we will be able to get back in and see how we're doing. I'm very concerned that this long gap in classroom instruction may have hurt our students, but you know what? We'll take their pulse in the spring, see how they're doing, and see where we need to improve. So.
But hopefully it'll be a relative performance, because everybody will be doing online education, so it'll be kind of relatively will be all the same. Hopefully it'll be measured in that sense as well too.
Oh, certainly. I'm sure that every school district will see a dip because of students being out, but you know, we just need to be, and we need to just be cognizant of that going into the spring, that, you know, the community needs to be realistic that we may see a dip in test scores after the COVID crisis, but I'm hoping that it won't be long before we get back up to where we were.
Right. With that, thank you. Appreciate it. I'll open up the panel to come on. I'm a board Parminder. Please take the lead.
Sure. Thanks, Ann. So yeah, I heard you mentioned about like comparing our Lambertville school districts compared to some of the in the Alameda County. So like, for example, you mentioned about Pleasanton and Dublin. Which areas are we lacking behind from those school districts, and what exactly are we doing to catch up with that pace or that level that those school districts
Okay.
are?
Well, I know that one area where we've been focusing our attention as a school board, and where I know we need to continue to focus, is the area of math. Our students are doing very well in math, but they can do better. And I think part of the problem with the math scores has to do with the implementation of Common Core, which for a lot of the students who are older came right in the middle of their learning process, and has kind of been a hiccup. But I think also we've been doing some great things. We've had college professors from Delta College come in and work with our staff at Mountain House High School to help them develop curriculum and help them focus their skills on math. And so we also have programs where the students from the 8th grade can take math courses over the summer at the high school so that they're more advanced in math and they can move forward more quickly and take the advanced classes later on. So I think we've had some really good initiatives in place, and I do think there's, as I said, definitely I think that continuing to partner with Delta College in a variety of ways, including having these trainings, will really help out. And then continuing to make sure that we can attract the best and brightest staff to make sure that our math teaching is up to par.
And how many years are we looking at so that we can say that we are at the same level as Dublin or Pleasanton school districts?
About 2 years ago, Parminder, I would have said we could probably be looking at 3 or 4 years out. However, having this big gap from the coronavirus, I really can't venture a guess because I'm not real sure, where we are. We don't have test scores to tell us. We do have MAP testing, which tells us the kids are learning. I mean, they're making progress, definitely. But I'm going to say it's probably going to be a little bit longer now because we've had some ups and downs. So I'd say maybe 5-6 years out.
Okay. And another, like a little different question about, because I heard you mention about two things. One is in the policy making, and second about you working in the mental health. I know, we unfortunately in the U.S. we have seen a lot of cases every single year of school shootings and stuff. So what exactly are you guys doing to help the kids which might be in that type of situation, and how you guys determine which kids will be or actually suffering from that type of mental health issues, and what exactly are you guys doing to prevent that from happening and helping those kids to come up with all that issues that they have, so that they're not threat to themselves or to the other kids at school?
Well, I can say a lot of that work has been done at the school sites, whether it's with the Rachel's Challenge program that they had at Mountain House High School, or some of the other programs that different principals have put in place. A lot of that work is site specific as far as what each principal wants to do. The school board has, however, gotten behind an initiative, and we did make sure that we hired one specifically mental health counselor that works with the principals across the district who have identified students who need supports. And that person is in addition to the school psychologists who are at the sites and work with the students, so that we have someone who's more of a targeted resource. I think our goal is to expand that and to have more of those mental health counselors. Again, probably looking into the grant world to see if we can get some grant funding for that. Unfortunately, as a fairly wealthy district, not wealthy, but lacking in Title I funds or some of the other funds that could help us get those resources, we're going to have to be more creative to add additional mental health supports as our district grows. I think.
So are there any challenges like to getting additional funding for this type of programs, or?
Right now, we're looking at a lot of challenges, Parminder, because when the governor passed his bill, SB, let's see, which one was it now? The SB 98 back in the spring, he capped the funding so that schools wouldn't lose funding. Unfortunately, the funding he based it on was however many students a school had in February of 2020. But you all know, you can see around you, the houses keep building and building, and the kids keep coming and coming. So we're short money now, because rather than saying, hey, you're a growing district, we're going to give you more money, the state is saying we're going to give you the same money we gave you in February. So that puts these initiatives at risk because we have less money to work with instead of more. So that's why I'm saying, we're going to need to start being creative about how to go about getting additional funding for those kinds of initiatives.
Okay, so I'll pass it on to Arvinder. So with his questions.
Yeah, thank you, Parminder. So this is about based on some conversations I had with some of the parents, and with the COVID-19 situation, I talked to some of the parents who have, for example, 2 kids. One goes to Bethany. With the online learning going on, second kid did not get a seat in Bethany, for example, this time. They have to be sent to another school, which is working now fine because everything is online. Doesn't really matter, which school and what. But once they go back to the school, I felt there was a lack of reassurance for the parents that yes, both your kids will go to the same school, for example. So I don't know if you're aware of this kind of situation. If you are, is there anything that you as a board member, would do to address it?
So I am aware that there are some students who have been split up due to just the growing sizes of the schools. And I know that the superintendent has reached out to families to address that. Our goal is obviously to have all the families at the same site. I know when I first started teaching at Bethany, my older daughter was at Wickland because that's where I live, but I started working in Bethany. And it was a little difficult because I had 2 kids in Bethany and 1 kid at Wickland. There were different, parent-teacher nights and different science fair nights, and it got to be a little hectic. And so the next year I brought my daughter over to Bethany with me. And so I understand definitely the parents' concerns. Unfortunately, part of our problem is just the humongous growth we've seen in the population, which makes it difficult because, again, the state has capped the class sizes, so you can't have too many students in a class. And if you're just 1 student over, you can't hire 1 teacher for 1 student. That doesn't work either. So, there's a little bit of finances and balancing act definitely that needs to be taken care of. But the parents I know have very real concerns, and we, as a parent, I completely understand that, and we are working to get all of, the students reunited as soon as possible. I think that's basically our goal.
One thing that's reassuring is, your personal experience with your kids, studying in this school district. I think which puts us as parents at ease that we have someone, who will represent, having gone through the same kind of experiences. So yeah, thank you for that answer. And I think the second question is kind of on a separate topic. We talked about the rankings. We talked about how good we could get in terms of rankings, right? And I feel very fortunate to be in a community where the schools are so good and the community is great. With that said, I think there is some emphasis. I'm not saying that it has not been done. There's a result, and then there's a process of learning, right? As a parent, I would like, and I know many of my friends who are parents agree with that, I would like my kids to enjoy the learning process as well, not just the result. Yes, of course, I would love to have my school ranking up on the top, and but it's okay if my kid is not top of the top, right? But he should be able to enjoy the process of learning. So just would like to hear your opinion on that, and is there anything that kind of happens behind the scenes in terms of conversations between the board members on that?
Definitely. Having the students enjoy going to school is honestly the most important. One thing I know as a special education teacher is that not every student is going to be the top of the mark, but every student has a gift to bring to the community. And so it's really important to help those students let those gifts shine, and those different activities that you can put in place, and clubs and different extracurricular things for students are really, really important. I know, for example, the music program has been a godsend to my son. He may not have been the most outgoing person, but he really loved music and made great friends through the music programs here. So making sure that we have a balance of opportunities for students is really key to make sure that that learning is fun, because some students, may be ready to go off and become Cisco engineers tomorrow. And some students may want to go and build houses like their dad. And we need to recognize that both of those people are super important in our community. We couldn't do what we do without those Cisco engineers, but also we wouldn't have a house to live in if we didn't have someone who could build it. So we need to value the gifts of each student and make sure that we have programs in place to help them feel comfortable and at home and celebrate who they are.
Yep, sounds good. And lastly, for now, for people like me who are young parents, small kids, we're new to the system, we're still learning, it's a learning curve for us too. So are there any scenarios where parents could reach out directly to the board members? Can you give us some examples, in what scenarios we can perhaps reach out to you?
Sure. So as a board member, we always want to hear from our community. It's really important for us to know that we're representing what the community needs. So all of us have an email at lammersvilleusd.net. So you can just type in, first initial, last name, and lammersvilleusd.net and send us your concerns. A lot of times those concerns might not be something that are concerning for the whole public, but as a board member, knowing that it's a concern, we can elevate it quickly to the attention of the correct, person on staff and make sure that we get some resolution. So I think reaching out via email is really important. Or even, if you see someone on Facebook and you say, hey, I have a question, sending them a private message is another great way to do it, so that we can make sure that, your needs are heard.
Sounds good. So thank you, and Parminder, back to you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Cece, you're going to take over?
Hi.
Hi,
So I have a question.
Sure.
What do you see as the current challenges facing public education in our state?
Right now, the biggest challenge is the problem that we've had with just, I think, collecting taxes now because of the crash in the economy. I'm worried that the governor will continue to cut education for the next several years until we can get our economy back up. Not having money means not having funds to improve teachers' salaries, to improve, and introduce new programs. So I think that's my main concern right now. It didn't used to be. I was never like a big financial person, but just the way things have been going, I'm a little more concerned about, the amount of money that the state is giving us. I also want to make sure that our students are getting prepared for careers and for college. For a long time, schools really emphasized everyone should go to college. And I think college, for my kids has been great. But I've also worked with kids who going to college was the furthest thing from their mind, and they needed training. They needed, they had other goals, and that would have been more helpful to them. So I think those are the two areas that I'm the most concerned about right now.
Yes, definitely. Budget is really important. I feel like schools need a lot of funding.
Yes, exactly.
My second question is, how do you plan on improving the school district in terms of student life, education, safety, bullying, and especially mental health of the students during your tenure as a board member? And how do you plan on taking these initiatives further?
Okay, so like I said, I do believe that we should get more mental health counselors available for students. I think that there are some programs like when they had the puppies come to Mountain House High School. I don't know if they still do that. They used to have these puppies come And I think that was a great idea, and we could do that at more schools, not just the high school, providing opportunities for students to be more aware of the importance of mindfulness, and those opportunities would be very good for students as far as mental health. I do think we're going to need to get creative and get some grants for some of those things, but I think that the money is out there. We just need to find the right direction to go to get it. As far as bullying, bullying is something that I just personally can't stomach, and I'm really happy that one thing, as a board member, we get a weekly update on any bullying incidents that have happened at any of the schools, and if they aren't resolved, we have the opportunity to call and follow up and say, what's going on? Has this been resolved? What can we do, and what steps can we take to make sure this doesn't happen again? So I think, as a board member, that's a number one priority in our district, and I'm really grateful for that all the principals keep an eye on that and really make sure they elevate that quickly to the board's attention. So that's an important factor.
That's great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I feel like I didn't answer all your questions. You had a couple things. Did I get everything, or?
I was also wondering about like student life and improving like safety.
Yes. Okay. So student life, I really think that the clubs, the way that the clubs at Mountain House High School are developing, and that there's a club for pretty much any interest, is really fantastic. I'm a little concerned about student life right now because it's very hard for you to have student connections. So I'm hoping, and I really need to follow up with that with Mr. Faubert and with some of the other principals, that we're doing some spirit. I know that you had a spirit week last week, which is fun, but doing some other kinds of activities with students virtually so that they can get more involved would be great too. I think it would be nice to see some sort of connection between the students at Mountain House High School and at the K-8 schools, so that they, maybe once a week, maybe once a semester or something, had a week where they were able to make some connections so that the younger students could see what it's like at the high school, or vice versa.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think we can bring in the other students for their questions.
Yeah, so our first question is from Siddha. She's in the background. There you go.
Hi, Siddha.
Hi, my name is Siddha, and I just had a couple of questions for Miss Bonilla.
Okay.
I went to Wickland Elementary School from kindergarten to 8th grade, and I went to the high school, and now I'll be going to UC Davis.
Hey, that's my alma mater.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Yeah. What major were you?
I majored in American Studies, and then I actually went on and got my master's from the University of Wyoming. In the same.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask you, how are you planning on enforcing students to wear masks and practice social distancing when in-person school starts?
That is important. Unfortunately, a lot of that is going to have to come from each teacher. And I think the one thing I know is a lot of teachers are actually very concerned about health and safety, and very concerned about the health and safety of students. So I know that, mask wearing and keeping social distance is going to be an important part of the classroom culture that's developed, but also that we've talked about having smaller groups of students come at different times so that, it's easier to socially distance the desks and those kinds of things. I think it will be hard for the little ones to wear masks, but I know that we've already purchased some plastic dividers, or those clear dividers that we can use to keep students sort of separated in case they're not wearing their mask. So I think putting some of those safety measures in place so that if someone's not wearing their mask, we've got a sort of a backup. That's going to be important, especially for the little ones.
Okay, thank you. And I also wanted to ask, what is your opinion of your school district's policies towards special education programs in the elementary schools?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not, I worked in special education, and I was working here in Mountain House when students were taken from the different schools and relocated so that they were more centrally located. I think there are some pros and cons to that process. One of the more negative things is that they're removed from their community school where their friends from their community are and their family members are. One of the positives is that they can have a more targeted environment and a teacher who's more targeted to more severe needs. So there are definitely pros and cons, and I'm not sure there's a one-size-fits-all answer, because some students do really well in that environment and some students would be better off at their home school. So unfortunately, that's, a policy that one thing I really like is I think that special education students should be with their typically developing peers as much as possible. And they should be able to be part of their community school. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Sidek. So our next question is from Harjup Sandhu.
Okay.
She should be on soon.
That's okay. Oh, we have Dylan.
Okay.
Dylan?
Yeah, there you go. That's okay.
Sorry, I might have said his name wrong.
Yeah. All right. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Can you tell me how to say your name, because I think I just mutilated it?
This is Drew.
Drew. Okay, got it. Thank you.
I went to Bethany from kindergarten to 8th grade, and I'm currently a freshman in Mountain House High School.
Okay.
And my question for you is, what is your vision for education within this community?
So I think my vision for education in this community is that students feel a real strong connection between their K-8 school and the high school. I think when the high school was built, it seemed very disconnected. And so I'm hoping that we can build further connections between there and just continue to excel for our students that they can get the best education possible. And focus on their interests.
Okay. I have another question for you, and that is, what particular skills or experiences qualify you to serve as a school board member?
So part of my skills and qualifications are that I actually worked here in the district for 9 years. I worked at Wickland for 2 years, and I worked at Bethany for 7 years. So I really know the culture of the schools and the experiences students have and the experiences teachers and principals have. But also I'm fortunate because as an educator, I've worked in other school districts around nearby. I've worked in the Oakley schools at the high school and elementary level, and I worked in Ripon. Now I work in Modesto. So I've seen what other school districts nearby are doing and what's working and what's not, so that I can bring new ideas to our district. And I think, being very involved in education is a benefit for me to know exactly what's going on at various levels for the state, national, local, but also knowing what new initiatives are coming forward, and so that we can continue to, be on the cutting edge of education here in our district.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Drew. Now it'll be Harjup asking a question.
Okay. I like having all the students involved. It's really nice to see you guys.
That is the goal. I think we're accomplishing it right now.
Yes.
Hi, my name is
Hi.
Caleb. I've been in Mountain House for my entire life and my educational career so far. I went to Bethany Elementary School and I just graduated in the spring from Mountain House High School, and now I attend UC Berkeley. And my question for you is, how do you plan on helping underprivileged children during distance learning?
That's a really great question, Harjup. I know there are a lot of students who struggle to stay connected and stay online. One thing I know we've been talking about, and it's something that's coming soon, is that we're going to be bringing some kids back to the classroom I think we're starting with some of the special education students, but I would really like to see the students who are English language learners come back also, because they have particular struggles and particular needs. We don't want to target any one social economic group necessarily, but at the same time, we do want to make sure that the students who have the greatest needs do get what they need. And I do know that, that the superintendent is very concerned that all the students are connected and online and learning. So that's an important piece for us.
Definitely. And what are 2 to 3 needs that must be priorities for our district to address, in your opinion? And why do you see those as needs?
So I think providing additional mental health support is going to be a really important need in our community. As we grow, we're going to have more diverse needs. So I think that's something very important. And I'd like to see us continue to do that, to target that area. I would also like to see more technical college or hands-on learning be in place at the high school level, where there's not just where there's more sort of career readiness programs, so that students can go straight from Mountain House into a career if they're not interested in going to college. So I'd like to see some programs like that, and more diversity in that area for sure. And I think the other area is really the math instruction needs to continue to develop. It's not just our district. Every single district I've worked in has had students struggling with math, but it's definitely an area of need.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Harjup. So that's all for the from the students for now. Thank you so much, Ms. Bonilla.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Sis.
Thank you, guys. That was great. I think we had some, we stretched Anne's answers quite a bit, her thinking and abilities to kind of answer your questions, and it goes a long ways to educate the community as well on that one. I've been hearing a few things, well, kind of back and forth, kind of, questions that I heard a few things. I think there was a theme, and about funding, about issues that we're having right now because we're sort of underfunded. And can you relate all these funding related questions? What is the budget for the schools that we have? And then if you can tie it into Measure L that we had when you came on the Board of Trustees in 2016, in fact, that was implemented. What is the success we have seen from it, and how long would that continue in terms of numbers and values on that one? And then we have a few more things once we kind of get to it. I'm sure we have more questions on that as well too. Funding is a big issue right now, of course.
Yes. So Amrit, I'm going to be honest, I don't have the whole budget in front of me, so I can't exactly say numbers wise. I do know that with Measure L funds, we've been able to build some of the additional facilities. For example, building some softball fields and some additional fields at the new Cordis Elementary, and also building the Professional Development Center at the Cordis Elementary, and that was very much needed. I believe some of the funds may have also gone into working at Hanson. So we've had a variety of those funds, and I think we're coming near the end of the Measure L funds, but I think we've used them very wisely and addressed a lot of different needs in the community because of Measure L. So that's really important. And I think we've all been really grateful that we've had that opportunity to use those funds to enhance schools.
Some of the numbers that I had heard or read about a little bit on the go, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know you don't have the exact number in front of you right now, but the numbers were $54. That was a max we could have gotten per $100,000 of a home value, of a property value that we would contribute toward that. And back when it was introduced, it was, of course, like you said, it was a Mountain House rec center or entertainment center that came about, of course, performing arts center that came about, library that came about, Hanson School, of course, you mentioned Cordis Elementary School as well, too. But I didn't know, and I think you answered part of it. When would that contribution of, and step back, it's about $16 per month that we contribute, citizens contribute or residents contribute towards that. I heard it's coming to an end. So would there be another measure that would be, because we're still kind of underfunded, a big need for that? I think that was a designated fund that was supposed to be meant only for Mountain House, and nobody else can take that away. But if
Right.
that comes to an end, what is the future look like in that sense? And leading to that, just to park the question, that we'll get into that a little bit, is your ability, or is your ability to influence, if you will, to the state and county legislatures, especially in terms of hold harmless bill that you mentioned early on as well too, and what that looks like in terms of what does you bring to the table in terms of having your affiliation or your influence outside of Mountain House to bring those funds back in. So measure and that, if you can combine those two and see where we go.
Sure. So I think we probably, I think we have some Measure L funds still left that we're going to be using towards the next school, Evelyn Costa. So I think that after that school is built, we may be near the end of those funds. As far as how I can influence the state legislature and the local representatives, I'm a member of a group called AXA, which is the Association for California State Administrators. And so I think part of my connection with them is that I am, I represent the administrators in California, and so I can bring them that to the table, not only as a board member, but also as an administrator, and talk to them about the needs of education at this time.
We've been hearing from prior candidates, Anne, about issues with having to wrestle, if you will, the funding that we're not getting. And hopefully we don't get there, but there's maybe rumor in our community of having maybe having to go to a legal action as well too, pursue that. Hopefully we don't do that and we get our funding. Can you tell us a little bit about that whole harmless and how it's connected to those legislation? And I know you mentioned a little bit about we're underfunded because this is an affluent community, and therefore we're missing on some of the earmarks that other school districts are getting because they have a higher population of student population that we don't have, if you will.
Yes.
Elaborate a little bit more on that.
Oh, sure. So part of the problem is the hold harmless. So we had adequate funding up until January. And what happened was really with the coronavirus, then when the schools shut down, the governor had to decide how to fund the schools. Typically, school funding is based on attendance. And it was difficult to measure attendance when students are not in school, obviously. So he came up with this formula that said, however many students you had at a school in February 2020, that was where the money was going to, that was how much money your school was going to get. Now, for some school districts, their numbers have declined over time. So each year they're having fewer and fewer students. So having enough money, the same amount from February, is actually great for them because they're not losing any money from the state. The problem in Mountain House is that we're growing. And so our population is growing, but typically we would get a certain number of dollars per student, but we're not getting the same number of dollars per student because they're only measuring the number of students we had in February. So that's the reason why right now we're struggling financially, but I personally am working towards addressing this with the legislatures. I know Trustee Balzerini and Trustee Pombo have also addressed them to try and get them to understand the needs of a growing district. We're not the only growing district here, but the problem is that not only are we a growing district, but we're a small district. So whereas a larger district might be able to absorb the impact of that, a small district really does not have that flexibility. And that's why it's becoming more of an issue.
Thank you for elaborating that a little bit on that. Also, a separate question, unrelated. There's questions coming on the from the community as well to some of them. One of the recent issues that have been come up to the board is about facilities use for public use. What's your take on it? And especially in the context of what other districts are doing and what are charges for having public open up the facilities for public use in terms of what went into decisions of deciding the fee structures and whatnot. If you can elaborate that a little bit.
Sure. I'm not as familiar with how they've develop the fee structures because the facilities committee draws those up in their handbook. However, I know that it's important for the public to have access, and I was really grateful to see, for example, when we opened the pool, that we made a structure so that the community could access the pool for swimming lessons and other activities. I know it's a little more difficult with some of the fixed facilities, for example, the tennis courts. It's important to be able to let the community access those, but at the same time, we can't leave them wide open for vandals. I know, if you've lived in Mountain House long enough, you know what people have done to our public over time. And, having right now, especially, some financial restrictions, we need to make sure that all of our facilities stay in good shape. So it's really a balancing act between what the needs of the community are and maintaining really high quality facilities for our students.
That makes sense. The key thing was relative to Pleasanton, Tracy, some other school districts. The question that was raised was it's a lot lower fee structure than ours. I think that was the disparity. Like how can they manage with their structures versus why can't we manage for the same type of equivalence in terms of use of the facilities in that one.
And I think that has to do a lot with the tax structure of the town. Pleasanton and Tracy might be able to partner more with the city government, and we don't really have a city government with a big enough pocket to help us out. And the other issue is both of those are much bigger districts, so they have bigger pots of money to work with. So I think there's as Mountain House gets bigger and bigger, we will have more opportunities like those bigger towns. But I think, even though we're a lot bigger than we were when I came here in 2004, it's still fairly small in a relative speaking.
Right. It's a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways. So I think balancing act that you have to to do as a trustee, of course. So I appreciate that. I think having that center line that to make sure both parties are kind of satisfied in terms of the public as well as the facilities being kept intact.
Exactly.
I'll open up the panel. Any questions, Parminder, please jump in.
Yeah, I have just one last question from my side. Why should I vote for you?
Well, I think you should vote for me, Parminder, because I bring a lot of educational experience to the table. I have a lot of information about the educational process from a lot of different resources. Each place that I've worked, you stay in contact with your colleagues and you know what's happening in their district, and you can use that to make better decisions for our district. So I think having those educational background is very important, and also the fact that I'm here for parents. As a parent, I've been a parent in this district. I've been a teacher in this district. So I know, and I had students in this district. So I can see issues from a variety of viewpoints, and so I think that I bring a very balanced view to the board.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Arvinder, please.
So Amrit, I don't have any other question, but I do want to thank Ann for all those detailed answers. I'm very sure that they are very useful for the community. And I also want to thank you.
Appreciate it. Everybody has been really great today. I think it's coming to the end. Ann, what would you give a message in the end to the community? How would you differentiate as a leader for trustee board today? Last words to our community. What would you like to say? Who Ann is, and again, like Pramila said, why they should vote for you. But what is some of the things that you want to give a message back to?
Sure. Well, I just want the community to know that I'm really dedicated to the success of our students, all students, from whatever angle or whatever interest they have. I recognize that there are a lot of students with a lot of different needs. Not everyone is going to win the spelling bee, and not everyone is going to be the touchdown hero. But each student brings a real value to our school, and we need to make sure that we're addressing those needs and building up our students so that they can be great leaders in the future. So I think that, what I want people to know is that as an educator, I bring that to the table, that I can see what the teachers need to help them be successful. But I also know that at the end of the day, it's the kids that matter, and every single kid matters. So that's really important to me.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate a ton for coming on the show today, and hopefully there'll be more platforms like this. I'll bring our candidates up for the community to know in person, of course, and have these platforms kind of proliferate a little bit more, especially involving kids. And I appreciate kids coming in today. The answers, they had excellent questions, very broad, very probing, and I think you answered them very professionally as well too. And I appreciate that candor as well too. Thank you, kids. With that, if anything, anybody else, any last minute for Ann? Otherwise, we'll wrap this up.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to make this opportunity available to me. It's really something that's dear to my heart working for this school district, and so I hope I get the opportunity to continue to do so. So thank you again.
Looking forward to that and appreciate that. So that we end the show today. Hopefully we'll meet again, maybe before the election one more time, I guess, again.
Sounds great. All right. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.